Today I'm going to go over how the breadth detail and breadth summary pages work. So this is where we're actually utilizing using the yfinance library to access the Yahoo Finance API data. And basically we're just getting, we've already used it, excuse me, previously to get the stock names, which you can see. So those show up in our current portfolio. So all the user has to do is put in a ticker. We go to through yfinance and we grab this name and we store it in the database so we can display it. But now what we're going to do is go over how we get the historical data to create these tables, which show us which stocks in our portfolios are above the 20-day exponential moving, 50 simple, 200 simple, and what's below. And we also do this for all the different indices here, as well as the sectors. So, and then we also have to create a summary page. So how we build this out. Let me go to the code. And so let's start with the user's portfolio breadth detail. So that's where we create these tables right here, up to 3 portfolios, and it breaks them down by these buckets and displays it to the user. Also, one other thing I'll mention is you can do, like right now it's January 5th, it's a Friday, and it's 11:30 Eastern time. And so the stock market's actually open. So this is actually currently where these are sit. If I go to previous close, as of yesterday's close, you can see there were only 2 stocks in this portfolio above the 20-day exponential. If I go to current, you can see it looks like AMD and NVIDIA, have been added today. So this is live today. When the market closes today, current and all through the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, current will be Friday's close or today's close, and then previous close will still be yesterday's close. So it allows you to see from day to day what's been changing in your portfolio or in the market as a whole if you're going to use the sector and index course up here. So let's take a look at the code. Okay, so for users portfolio breadth detail, we are going to, so this is just a get method. And we are going to, this is just a quick check to make sure the user is logged in. Then we're going to grab the user's ID so we can grab the user's portfolios from the database. And again, the user can have up to 3 portfolios. This one we're looking at just has 2. So let's see how this works. So we're going to go to the portfolio model page. And all we're doing is just doing a join table here where we're taking the portfolios, which is pretty simple. It's really just the name and user ID. We're joining it using the join table portfolio stocks, and we're joining it by portfolio ID, and we're adding the stocks object to it. And so the stock is very simple. It's really just name and ticker, but we're going to need both of those to display using Flask. So we're going to use a lot of dictionaries and lists, and this just to make it really simple to access the data when we do it on the front end through Flask. And so that's all that's doing. So we're going to grab the user's portfolio, and then the nice thing about this is we have for every portfolio, we have every stock, and that stock is an object, so we can access name and ticker from it. If there are no portfolios, so let's say the user has no portfolios created, it's just going to redirect them back to this page, which will be empty, and it's going to just flash, hey, make a portfolio so you can utilize this function. Then down here, what we're going to do is you're going to create a portfolio list. So this is going to be a list of all the different stuff we're going to calculate so that we can display each of those 4 different tables for each of the portfolios. So they go in columns 1, 2, and 3. So you need to create that to send it, and then we're just going to send that basically right to the front end and use it in Flask. So let's go into helpers. So helpers contains everything where we're going to use the yfinance library. So it's just a separate file in my data. Okay, so this is, what we're going to do here is we're going to create a dictionary with key value pairs of lists. It's a dictionary of lists, and each one of these lists, and remember we're going to do this for each portfolio, will be a list of every stock in the portfolio that's over the 20-day exponential moving average, 50, 200, and everyone that's under. So it should be really easy to access on the front end. And then what we're going to do is all we need to send to yfinance, because remember we've got the stock object for every portfolio or for every stock that's in the portfolio. So you just need to set the, for stock and stocks, all we're going to send is the ticker for each one of those stocks. So that's all this is doing. And then we're going to run this function to get all of our historical data, which we can then run through the rest of this. So let's go up here. And this is the one function where I'm still working to speed it up a little bit. I think there's a faster way to do this because when there's a lot of stocks, it can take 20, 30 seconds to load the whole thing when there's hundreds of stocks, um, especially if the market's open because the data is always live. So I am using a global dictionary to cache the data. So once you've done it, the nice thing is, once you've accessed it, it's stored so it pops up super fast. So all the data is already here. But if I were to go to sector detail, which I haven't run this yet, you'll see it can take a second because it's about 70 or 80 stocks total. So I think there's a faster way to do this. I've been playing around with, so that's kind of the last little thing I need to do on the back end. But now that all this data is here, it's real quick because it's all stored now. There's not, it doesn't need to keep going back out to the yfinance or to the Yahoo Finance and calling the API. So that's all this is doing. So then we're going to combine all the symbols and store them in a data dictionary to use in that YMA compute function. So really simple here. All we're doing is for symbol and symbols, we're going to do the API data call, which is down here. And this is saying if the symbol is in the data cache, so this global variable, which is what helps speed up once you've already called that data we have, we don't have to keep calling it over and over again. It's going to basically skip and just return this. Otherwise, it's going to go through and make a new call. And so, and the way it works, you have to have basically today's close to get today's data. So you have to add a day to what you're going to send to the Yahoo Finance API. Otherwise, like if I just did today's date, like today, it's going to use yesterday's close. I'm going to get yesterday's data. So it's just the way the Y Finance library works. So no big deal. We're just using time delta to add one day to today's date. Pretty simple. And then the start date, I'm just hard coding. The furthest I go back is the 200-day moving average. So this clearly covers that amount of data. So if you want to change this and go back further, some people like to do the 200-week moving average. You're going to have to adjust this start date and be hard coded further back, obviously. And then we're just using the yf.download. We're going to get the data and we're just going to return all that data. So basically all these really three things are doing is grabbing all the historical pricing data for every single stock in all the portfolios for the user. So we go back down here. And so now we have all that historical pricing data stored in a dictionary. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the key value pair, the ticker. So each key is a ticker and the value is all historical pricing data. And what we're going to do for each of those tickers is we're going to get the current price, the 20-day exponential, 50-day simple, and 200-day simple moving average. So these functions up here, current price is pretty simple. And date is where here you can go previous close, current close to see the difference. I'm going to go here because it's a little less to see these. So all that's doing is the user is clicking yesterday or today, and it's just passing it through. So the Y Finance library is really nice because it stores everything into the pandas data frame. And so you can just use iLock. iLock -1 is just the last row in the data. So that's the current price. And then -2 would be yesterday's closing price. So that's real simple. That's all the closing price is. That's pretty easy. That's just the last row. And then what we're going to do here is we are going to calculate the exponential. So this is the exponential moving average. We pass in the historical price, the EMA period, which we're doing the 20-day, and then the date, which again is yesterday or today. We need to calculate the exponential moving average data. So that's simply data close. So this, when we get the historical data, we get things like adjusted close, close, open, high, low. You could use adjusted close. I use this for myself. Like I know if a stock is going to pay a dividend or a special dividend or it's going to stock split. Like I think adjusted close kind of just messes with the data. So I'm just using the pure close here. You can change this to ADJ space and you'll get adjusted close. And then we're just going to use this built-in function, the EWM. We're just spanning the EMA period, which is 20-day in this case, and then just get the average of that. So exponential is simply giving more weight to current prices. And as you go back, you give less weight. So day 20 doesn't impact the calculation nearly as much as, today and yesterday's closing price does. So that's how that works. The simple ones are a little more obvious. And then again, we just do iloc -1, iloc -2, and we return this moving average for each stock. SMA is similar, except we can just use the dot rolling and get the average, because for a simple moving average, every single day gets the same weight. So if we're doing um, a 50-day simple moving average, every single closing price gets 1/50th of the weight. You add them up, and that's the 50-day simple moving average. And again, -1, -2 gives us the SMA. So now we've calculated the current price and these three. What we do here, and you can of course change this. I'm not interested in if the price is over the 20-day moving average, if the stock isn't trending up. So for instance, you could have a stock that's down 90%, right? And so it's below every single moving average. And then it does some dead cat bounce, and it can easily get above the 20-day exponential moving average, but that moving average is still below the 200 and the 50. So for me, what I look at is I want to make sure that if I'm going to put it in a list of being above the 20-day exponential, I also want the 20 above the 50 above the 200. You could, of course, just remove all these conditionals and just have every stock that's over the 20. I don't find that to be helpful, but that's easy to change in here. And then we're just going to append for these lists we created. We're just going to append every stock that qualifies for these conditions. We're going to append it to this list. And we're just going to do the same thing for the 50, the 200, and then anything below the 200. And then we're just simply going to set a key value pair here. So within this dictionary, this key will be equal to that list of every stock over the 20. And then we return the stock lists. And we do that for each of the three, well, 1, 2, or 3 portfolios, and we append that. So then when we go to the front end here, so now we have appended a dictionary, which has 4 lists in it for every portfolio. And so on the detail page, you can see here, all we're doing is for stock in port list 0, right? Because we have a list here. We're just indexing through them, 0, 1, 2. Now we can just access the key, the EMA20, and then we just can access stock.ticker and stock.name, and that will display everything. So like here you can see we have 2 stocks that qualify there, so they display. For this portfolio, we have none. And we just do the same thing for the 50. I could go down here real quick. You could see this would be portfolio 2, portfolio 3, and then we do the 50-day, same thing. We do portfolio list, index the first portfolio, SMA 50, and so on and so forth. So that gives us all this information. The other nice thing about this too is if you want to, these are pretty evergreen functions I wanted to build because I will use them for other applications for finding trends and buy and sell signals. Not in this application, but probably just in a more of a backend style application. But you can easily change these to whatever you want. I mean, if you're a swing trader, you're probably looking at the 8-day exponential, and you could just change these to EMA if you want. You change this to an E, and you probably want the 8, the 10, and the 21 maybe is what you use, or whatever. So these are easily changed, and you just have to change a couple numbers in here. But you could output whatever you want and have it display here, which I think is pretty cool and pretty nice to do. So that gives us all our breadth detail. So what I'm going to do is actually make the breadth summary a separate video because it is a lot, and I feel like I'd like to keep these videos a little shorter, and I'm already close to 15 minutes here on this one. So we'll do the breadth summary one separate, but just to go over again really quickly, the detail. We are grabbing all the users' portfolios, making sure they have portfolios. We are creating a list of portfolios, which has, in each one of them, has a dictionary, which contains 4 lists. And those lists are the stocks above the 20-day, 50-day, 200-day, and those that are below it. We take that data, we pass it through here, and then on the front end using Flask, we can easily access first portfolio, index 0, and we can just tell it which key we want to get. So we want the list for the EMA 20, and then that displays really nicely here on the front end, breaks it down, and of course you can change previous close, current close, back and forth so you can see the difference. So I'll do a separate video for the breadth summary because it is kind of another big chunk, and that'll be like the last video. Maybe I'll do a summary video of the whole application when I'm done, but that should do it for breadth detail. Hope that was helpful using the yfinance library and all the calculations on the back end.